Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this week's lunchtime chat with Tlingit Haida. I'm excited to be joined this week by Valerie Hillman and Stephanie Nyland from our enrollment department. And really, again, always look forward to these lunchtime chats where we can introduce our staff to our citizens and be able to present our programs. And at the end, as always, have that opportunity for our tribal citizens and audience to submit some questions, and we'll do our best to get to those questions live. If we run out of time, we'll make sure that we provide answers in the chat section on the Facebook Live. And of course, if you make sure to like the video, you get entered in automatically for some door prizes. And again, I'm just excited to have the folks from enrollment in our program compliance department. And I'll go ahead and turn over to Valerie and Stephanie to introduce themselves.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Valerie Hillman. I am the program manager for Tlingit Haida program compliance. My Tlingit name is Yukon Cleet. I'm Tlingit, Raven, Duck Dainton, Chukanadieti, grandchild of Kagwantan. Been employed with the tribe for this year will be 38 years. Thank you.
Stephanie?
Thank you, President Peterson. My name is Stephanie Nyland. I am the program compliance coordinator, and I have been for, I think, almost 3 years now. And I am an enrolled citizen of the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewas. Thank you for having us today.
So, Valerie, can you provide us with an overview of the program compliance department, sharing with us what your main functions are?
Sure. Our main functions, the tribal enrollment is one aspect of program compliance. We also oversee complaints, appeals. We help facilitate the tribal delegate elections. We maintain the receptionist, the mailroom. And our primary program is tribal enrollment. But we do other, the complaints is not just complaints, we also, share if there's good comments. We do talk with the managers and share that information as well.
Great. Stephanie, one of the key responsibilities of the program compliance department is administering the tribal enrollment program. What is program compliance's main role with regard to the tribal enrollment program?
Yes, thank you, President Peterson. The tribal enrollment program maintains Tlingit and Haida's tribal citizen enrollment records and enrolls those persons of Tlingit and or Haida descent into the tribe. So we also have services that include certifying tribal enrollment, correcting blood quantums, and issuing tribal ID cards.
Great. So, sorry. What is the function of the enrollment committee, Stephanie?
Our tribal enrollment committee is there they are. There are 6 delegates our 6 elected delegates appointed by you, and they are of both Tlingit and Haida descent. So they from various communities, and they're authorized to certify our newly enrolled tribal citizens.
Great. How often does the enrollment committee meet to review and act on tribal enrollment applications?
Usually we meet twice a year, but in 2020 we were only able to meet once due to technical difficulties. So we have had an extra meeting this year, but it's pretty much counted towards the 2020 sort of.
So have the meetings changed due to COVID-19?
Yes and no. So like they have changed in the sense that we're not in person. Our procedures and everything else are the same, but we did everything virtually this year, the last 2 meetings that we've had.
We did have to add a little bit of time to the meeting though, correct? Just because of using technology and not being in person?
Correct. It does take us like a usual is just a few days that our committee meets. And this time it took us about a week to do that, to review about the same amount of files because we are doing them virtually, one-on-one with our committee members.
Great. So Val, I know that you just recently concluded the committee meeting and we did enroll quite a few new citizens. Can you tell me where we stand now?
Our total active enrollment, I was just looking at that, 32,343 active tribal citizens. I'm not sure what our total number is, but this is active members. And I think if we can go back to the enrollment committee and just reintroduce their names and what community they're from. I see the list is there, but Ella Bennett is from the Juneau. Laverne Wise is from Seattle. She's Tlingit. Stephanie Rainwater is Haida from Seattle. Judy Helgeson is Haida from Prince of Wales. Frank Wright is Tlingit from Huna. And Patricia Alexander is Tlingit from Sitka. I just wanted to share that it's a diverse group and they work well together, and they did an amazing job with this virtual challenge that we had. And my staff, Stefan, Helen, and Rose, worked well with them, and the patience that all of us had with this new way of having a meeting. I'm pretty proud of that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought us back. You really think it's really important to recognize our enrollment committee because, you know, their work is really essential in getting the tribal citizens recorded and, you know, approved. And one of the reasons, so I select the committee from our elected delegates, and what we try to do is have a good cross-section representative of both Tlingit and Haidas that have knowledge that can help move us forward with clan and family history and knowledge. So we're really appreciative of this group, and I know they work really hard and take a lot of pride in what they're doing. So we really do appreciate them. Val, can you talk a little bit? Do people have to be, can you explain, like, you know, do they have to be Tlingit and Haida to enroll with the tribe? And
they do have to be Tlingit or Haida descent. Our constitution limit is restricted to Tlingit and Haida. We have had people ask, you know, if we enroll other tribal blood, and unfortunately we are unable to because our constitution restricts us to Tlingit and Haida. One of the things, and I think Steph will get into it later, is if you're Tlingit or Haida by blood and adopted out, excuse me, to say a non-native family, that individual is still eligible to be enrolled with Tlingit and Haida. If you're adopted by a Tlingit and Haida family and you don't have Tlingit and Haida blood, then you're not eligible for enrollment, and that's our restriction on our constitution.
can Stephanie, what are some of the requirements to apply for tribal enrollment?
So you would have to complete our enrollment application front and back. There's a family tree on the back side of this application that you can see in the slide. And you would have to provide us with your state issued or state certified birth certificate that lists the parents on them. So we would have to have both, or at least the Tlingit or Haida parent has to be listed on the birth certificate so that we can make the connection. As Val was just saying, if you are adopted, we do ask for additional birth certificate. So we would need your pre-adopted birth certificate as well as your adopted birth certificate. So then that way we can have both of those documents on file for our records. But mostly it's because the pre-adopted birth certificate, we want to make that connection for our biological descendancy.
Great. So can someone who is a member of a First Nation, Tlingit and Haida tribe in Canada also enroll with us?
Yes, sir. So as long as we can still make that biological connection. The only thing though that we do suggest that you ask if you are already enrolled in a tribe in, let's say Canada, you would want to check with that tribe to see if they prohibit dual enrollment, because we do not prohibit dual enrollment, but they may. And if that's the case, then they would want to choose to decide if they would like to enroll with us or stay enrolled with their First Nation.
So I understand there are instances where further documentation may be required to apply for enrollment with Tlingit Haida. Can you talk about this a little more?
Yes, that's sometimes we'll get an application just to, send in the front and back of the application, and they'll check the adopted part. So they may not have sent in the pre-adopted birth certificate. So we will ask for that. There are also times that maybe the tribally enrolled parent the parent is not enrolled with us. We would ask for additional information. Maybe the grandparent is enrolled and we need the birth certificate of the native parent. So then that way we can still make that biological connection. Or in other times, like you can see in the slide, we can take the affidavit of personal knowledge, can be completed as well. So we do try everything that we can to help our citizens get enrolled. Sometimes we do have some barriers, but we do try everything we can and make that available and help.
Right. So Val, one of the questions we get from folks is, why should I enroll? What are the benefits? Can you expand on that maybe a little bit?
Sure. That's always a good question. Many people think that being enrolled with Tlingit Haida is just for services, for scholarship or housing or medical, which that is part of it, but it's also a sense of belonging. You belong to a tribal organization is, I think, is key. It also allows the tribal citizen to participate in our tribal government, our elections. By being enrolled, they are part of a allocation for delegates. They can vote. They can run for delegate if they wish. When you're a delegate, you come to tribal assembly and you're our legislative body. So I think it's really important that people understand that once they're a tribal citizen, they can participate in these kind of activities. Also, it helps the tribe, you hear a lot of times the allocation, or you get money on behalf of the tribal enrollment number. For some programs, that is true. We have an elder program that or even Head Start. Stephanie gets a lot of requests for age groups for certain. They're going after a grant, so it helps us. When the program is seeking funds to, we'll be able to say we have this many people in each community. Sometimes it's Southeast, sometimes it's community specific. So it helps the tribe, to obtain extra funds, when we're not extra funds, but they need those numbers to say that we have a tribal citizenship that we're looking to offer service to.
I think it's really important to point out, though, that unfortunately, while sometimes the numbers are used, it is unfortunately mostly by service area, which is something that the grantor, the federal government or the state government define. And it's defined for us as Southeast Alaska. So it is frustrating when we have to tell tribal citizens enrolled outside of the service area that we don't get funding for them. And that's a real or a common misunderstanding is, well, you get money based on my enrollment and you don't serve me, and that's illegal. We do not get money based on enrolled tribal citizens that don't live in the service area for the grant purpose. Now, recently with the CARES Act distribution, it was kind of the flip side of that. We got money based on, because the Department of Treasury and Congress had decided to use housing numbers So it was really based on those in our tribal housing, and so it was less money, but there was no restriction on service area. So we did provide service to those outside of the service area. We have like our alumni scholarship where we provide funding for those outside of our service area. And I can tell you it's the mission of the tribe to bring in and make our own money so that we could define how we provide funding to our citizens rather than the grantor or the US government.
Right, and when you become a tribal citizen, once you're certified by the enrollment committee, they're issued a certification letter and an affidavit so they can provide a photo to us, and we can provide a photo ID, and I think Steph will talk about that in a little bit. But being enrolled, it helps the tribal citizens get scholarships, housing, medical. A lot of times those facilities will ask for either a letter from us saying that they're a tribal citizen or have their photo card, tribal card. And those are issued, once they're enrolled, they automatically go in the process of getting an ID card and certification letter. Those that are already enrolled and need one, they just need to contact our office and they'll walk them through the process to get those documents.
Okay. So Stephanie, how does someone get a tribal ID card if they're already enrolled with the tribe?
On our Tlingit Haida website, under enrollment, there's an affidavit form that they can fill out. And we are currently asking even our local citizens to be filling out the same affidavit form because we're not currently seeing citizens in the building. So we're not doing IDs on site like we usually would do. But so everybody, we do ask fill out this affidavit form and send that in to us. And they can send it to us at the address that's on the form, or they can email it to us as long as we can get a good clean picture. We do ask that it's not faxed to us. It comes across pretty grainy, so we can't get a good picture from it. And once we get those, we're processing them about once a week right now. We were a little bit behind, but we are pretty much caught up right now. So they're getting turned around a lot quicker than they had been.
Great. So the tribal ID card, as it's issued, has an expiration date. Can you explain why that is?
Yes, sir. We were trying to standardize our ID a little bit more. Most IDs have an address or expiration date on them, so we were just standardizing it a little bit more. And also by having an expiration date, it kind of gets them to come in to update their information with us so that we can get new addresses and whatnot, if need be.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also, our cards are federally recognized, and that's part of it too, right? Is having that expiration date as kind of a standardization that the government uses.
Yes, sir. We do have enhanced featured cards now, so we have multiple things, multiple features to the IDs that have made them enhanced.
And that kind of goes into the next question because we get asked a lot whether the tribal ID is a valid form of identification for traveling within the United States.
Mm-hmm. And it is you can use it with TSA. You can use it with the ferry system. You can use it pretty much anywhere IDs are accepted. It has a signature on it, the name, address, picture, and everything else. It is only for domestic travel though for TSA. So you can't use it to travel internationally, but you can use it to travel domestically within the United States.
So I think it's one of the things we get asked a lot too is like, hey, I was traveling to the airport and the TSA turned it down. What do they do in that instance?
I suggest anybody, when I get to the chance to talk to them, is to ask for a supervisor. Even if they get hit up by even Border Patrol if they're driving within, because you can use it also to drive within from Canada to Alaska or any border actually. But I suggest them to ask for a supervisor because it is stated everywhere in the TSA, even on their website. It shows Central Council listed as one of their accepted forms of ID. But it's very common that the TSA agents don't recognize it and they don't take the time to do the research to find out that it is an acceptable form, an acceptable ID card.
Yeah, pre-pandemic, I travel quite a bit, and I deliberately use my tribal ID, hoping that that will happen so that I can educate them. But honestly, I've never had a problem with it. Everywhere I've gone, they see it, they look at it, and they, shine their little light, see the hologram and all that, and wave me through. And I know the three of us, we actually crossed the border when we attended a border alliance meeting in New York, and we went through and we didn't have any problems, did we? That I recall.
No, and we all had a different version of our tribal ID cards, and they all worked just fine getting through.
So, but I have received those calls and messages from citizens saying, hey, they didn't let me use it. So I just want to be clear that they have absolutely no legal right to deny your use of your card. And sometimes if you do run into that, like Stephanie said, ask for a supervisor, let them know, hey, this is on the approved federal register. You cannot deny the use of my tribal ID.
I think right before the pandemic had hit, I actually, or maybe it was right after, I had actually spoken to a citizen that used it for the first time that I had heard of, crossing into Mexico and had no problems.
Yeah, well,
Awesome.
and that's just it. You already mentioned this, but again, a question we get quite a bit is whether our tribal ID can be used to cross into Canada or Mexico, and it's only if driving, correct?
Correct. Not flying. You do still need a passport while flying.
So I know one of the things that we get asked about quite a bit too is we recently quit putting blood quantum on our tribal IDs. And that was something that I believe it was 2019, our tribal assembly adopted amendments to our enrollment statute, which removed the blood quantum. And this decision was made because blood quantum by the government that imposes restrictions on our own ability to hunt and fish, using arbitrary percentage on who can and can't hunt and fish. To us, that's not right. As a federally recognized tribe, we decide who's enrolled and who's a citizen, nobody else. And so you shouldn't be subject to any restrictions. If you're a tribally enrolled citizen, blood quantum is a completely colonistic way, to manage, tribes, and we don't recognize that. And so if Val, though, if people do need to prove blood quantum for something, they can reach out, right?
Correct. Yeah, we would just issue a certification letter that would have the information on there.
Great. We get a lot of frequently asked questions. I'd open it up to you two to offer any of those, what those are.
I think one of the questions is birth certificate, and why do we need to see the original, or do we return the original? Do we accept the hospital record? And that's one of the things that we had conversation earlier with our enrollment committee, is the definition of a birth certificate. And so we're gonna add that into our Title 15 statute, is a definition of a birth certificate. So the question, what is the birth certificate that we need? And it's like Steph mentioned earlier, it's the birth certificate that's a certified copy from the Vital Statistics Office. And we do return those. The others, do we keep it or return it? And we do return the birth certificates. We try to get them, and maybe Steph, you can address that. I'm not sure that when you guys return those.
Usually once they've been looked at, the application in general has been looked at. So it could be that they get turned around semi-quickly, depending on where we are at. And it could be that we return them within a month or so. And they are returned certified mail. The added security now.
So another question is, I'm adopted. What paperwork do I need to submit with my application?
Val, you want that one or you got me?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Steph.
So we kind of touched base on it a little bit earlier, but we do need the pre-adopted birth certificate. We also need their adopted birth certificate. And again, that's just for the adopted birth certificates for our records showing, and mostly because, or not mostly, but sometimes the names have changed. It's really so that we can get that pre-adopted birth certificate gives us the bloodline, like the parents' names on there. So that's what we do ask for both of those.
I think you skipped ahead on the slides. Can we go back? So I don't think I missed this. You didn't answer. If my father is a native parent but is not listed on the birth certificate, can I be enrolled?
You can. There is a little bit more information that we would need, like the affidavit of paternity. So it does need to be signed by both biological parents as well. So we do need to, there is always, again, like I said earlier, we do try it best we can to help and find ways to be able to enroll our citizens. But that, yes, we can do it with a little extra paperwork.
Great. Go ahead. How often do you meet to enroll new tribal citizens?
Usually we meet twice a year. 2020, we were only able to meet once. So this year we are currently scheduled for 3 meetings this year because of the one that we had postponed from December.
Is it possible to be enrolled before the next scheduled tribal enrollment committee meeting?
It is possible. If it is, it's a provisional enrollment that is signed off by either yourself or whoever you have standing in for you, that can, or the COO, that they can sign off on it. And then your application would still be reviewed and still needs to be approved by our committee though. So whenever the next tribal enrollment meeting will be held after the provisional is approved.
I think just to add to that, we don't issue ID cards until they've been certified by the enrollment committee. What they'll get is a verification letter of provisional enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
How do I change my blood quantum?
That one's, it requires documentation. Sometimes a birth certificate gets amended and the father is added, so it'll change that. Or sometimes there's an error on the initial enrollment, and if the tribal citizen has to request that and provide documentation why they believe their blood quantum should be a certain blood quantum. And once and then that request goes to the tribal enrollment committee at their next meeting, and it is something that they review, and either they review it and either they approve it or they may ask for additional information. And if the request is approved, and then we will work with that person to help with all other family members. It's kind of like a house cleaning. Then we only need the one root, and then we can work with our files to update everybody else's blood quantum.
Okay. Will you reissue a new tribal ID card once blood quantum is corrected?
Yes, sir. And we'll send out a new certification letter.
Okay. Go ahead, Sam. Okay. So Stephanie and Val, the tribal enrollment by community statistics not only shows which communities have a high population of tribal citizens, but also shows that we do not know the registered community for many of our tribal citizens. Can you talk about this a little more?
So excuse me, The numbers that we see here are a lot of the, when somebody enrolls or updates their address, if they live in any one of these 21 communities, they are automatically put into that community from the beginning. And when it comes to elections, then we can pull from our data those 18 and over as of a certain date. But once somebody moves or is from a community that's not of these 21 communities, and they're 100 miles away, they can choose, they can select a community of their choice. And so we have quite a few that we did send out a mail out trying to update those records, because we got, I'm not sure, Steph, what, about 5,000 that are still null,
Yeah.
that are empty. So we send out a letter requesting, asking them to update the record with their voting community, and we got some response, and we were able to clean up our addresses as well, because we got a lot of bad addresses as well. If they say they're going to school or the military, they can still keep their community. If you're living in Huna and you move to Juneau for school, you can still have Huna as your community because you're temporary away for school. But if you move to Juneau, then you're automatically being put into the Juneau community. And these are this tribal enrollment by community, and the big question is always that other, and that's where the community is null. They've moved out. They might be living in, say, Florida, and they haven't addressed to us what community they want to, and we are going to do another mail out to try to get that number down.
Great. Stephanie, why is it important for tribal citizens to update their contact information with Tlingit Haida? Does it affect voting?
It does affect, as what Val was just saying, that other just leaves them to where they can't, they're not selected to a voting community for us. So if they don't have an updated contact information for us, or it's blank because we have it as a bad address or anything like that, then it does affect our voting. But it is important for our records to be updated for tribal government activities, elections. It's also important for our demographics for grants, as Val mentioned earlier too. So that just puts us to be able to have that, the numbers for our communities. When I pull reports for any one of our departments that might need something, maybe just for Juneau, for instance, that helps us having updated contact information.
Great. I'm looking at this slide, and it says update your contact information. Then it has this bit.ly and some numbers and letters. Is that an email address? What is that?
I'm not sure. That's got to be a...
That looks confusing to me, and I would think our audience would find that confusing too. So maybe I might ask our communications to chime in real fast. What is this?
So this is a shortened link, and we can provide the full link in the comment section real quick here.
Because I think if I saw that, I wouldn't even know where to go, where to enter that, what to do with that. It's not a www dot or anything. So, well, I appreciate you putting that in the comment section, Sam. So Valerie, looking forward, what are some of the goals for your department that you'll be focusing on through this year?
One of the things that we did is we are in the process of hiring a records specialist that will help us with a lot of our folders that we have. We keep a record of every tribal citizen. It has their application, the birth certificate, whatever documents they needed to be enrolled. So we have one for every tribal citizen, and those records are old. They're fairly old and need to be replaced with updated. The names need to be updated, or one of my goals is to update our hard file and our electronic file so that they match. Sometimes we have somebody who did a name change, but we didn't change the labels, so it's just updating the demographics of our tribal citizens. Our data conversion from our previous system was called Right Track, and we've been working with our vendor to get that it's a slow process, so we're hoping to get that updated. And as we move forward, we're hoping that our records will be updated from the old system to the new system. And all of us on the PC staff are working on updating, but the record specialist will be the one that will be working with our files. We talked about enhanced ID card, and that's something that we hope to do, but it is a little bit expensive. So that's kind of where we're on the back burner on that, is to get get our system to a fully enhanced. And what that means is it's an actual enrollment. It's a voluntary program to get enhanced tribal ID card. It's completely separate from the Tlingit Haida citizen card. It would be an enhanced tribal enrollment card for Tlingit Haida. And it has very specific, very detailed requirements that are needed. And we're hoping to work at looking into doing that for our tribal citizens. The other thing that I'm hoping to do is I got feedback. Increase our voter participation for Tlingit Haida tribal delegate elections. I think that we were able to do electronic voting, and one of the things I'd like to look at is helping increase that number so that there's more more notice to people, I guess, or I get the word out more, so there's more participation in the Tlingit Haida voting. And then along with that is the blank where we saw earlier, the other field, is to reduce that. It'd be ideal if we can get it down to 0, but it's just been a slow process for that as well.
Great. We're about to wrap up with our canned questions and go into public questions. Is there anything you want to close with as a reminder for tribal citizens?
Well, you got that one, or you want me?
That was Steph's question of the update.
So one of the things, if you have a family member, a kid, a niece, a nephew, or a cousin, anybody that's in high school that's going to be looking at getting scholarships, and now is a good time for them to check in with us to see if they are enrolled. So then that way, when it does come time for them to apply for scholarships, they're already ready. So that's one of the requests for provisionals that we get often is in regards to scholarships. But if you know any family members that are getting ready, like I said, going into high school, or are already in high school, reach out to us, email us, ask or call us and ask us if if they are a citizen or not, and we can let you know. And then if not, we can get the application process going a lot quicker.
Great. Well, I want to thank you ladies for this presentation. I think it's really great information. We'll go ahead now and turn over to some of the questions we got from our public. From Justin Malkeet, and I apologize if I mispronounce that. I came here because I have a question. I'm working on genealogy of my Tlingit ancestry. Is there someone at Tlingit Haida that has resources to help with that, as well as identifying clans? Justin, I think if you sent us a letter, you could address it to either program compliance or Office of the President. We can probably work with some of our cultural specialists that might be able to point you in the right direction. And I know they're very knowledgeable in clans, so can probably share some resources. From Jerry Museth, will you help adoptees connect with their relatives? Those who are adopted don't always know who they are. They are just told that they were Alaska Native. Val, do you want to tackle that?
We have a waiver. We have sensitivity waiver A and sensitivity waiver B. And what that does is one allows to review your file. If somebody wants to come and look at their file, we have to have them fill out a sensitivity waiver. And I apologize, I'm not sure what A and B, which one is the one for adoptees. And if both parents on both sides, adoptive and the pre-adoptive and adoptive agree, we try to help connect. But they have to fill out that affidavit, and if they do, then we do try to connect. Or what we can do, we offer to send a letter to somebody, but we don't release any information on family history without permission.
Great. From Cheryl Painter. Is it necessary to send a picture with the enrollment application? Stephanie.
It's not necessary, but it does help if you'd like to send the affidavit with your enrollment application. What just happened?
Do either of you also have the Facebook on as well?
No,
No? Okay, we're getting some kind of feedback.
and I just lost my computer screen. Like, I can't see you guys.
Okay, I can see you folks, but you sound better.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm good.
All right, Kathy James. I live out of state and feel I don't benefit because I am no longer an Alaska resident. Is there a way for me to benefit? So, Kathy, as we covered, could be for scholarship. I think it's also important for you if you live outside in the lower 48, especially if you want to go to any IHS facility, they're going to ask you to prove you're tribally enrolled. So I think those are direct benefits. I can tell you again, and I'll continue to repeat this, and I share it a lot, pretty much at every lunchtime chat we hold every week, because that's the predominant question we get from our citizens. We are doing everything we can to enjoy economic sovereignty, to make our own funding so that we can decide to serve all of our citizens. And then occasionally the program like the CARES Act came out and we were able to serve folks outside of our service area. And again, so it is important, I think. And as Val touched on, I think it's also that sense of belonging. And I know that belonging can feel a little strained when you don't qualify for everything. And again, I'll just keep repeating, we're working to change that. But you also, if you have children and grandchildren, you want them to feel like they can as well. And especially again, with the scholarships and everything. So
Another thing to add to that is we do sign forms for people who apply for like eagle feathers or eagle parts, and that's not restricted to just our service area. We get a lot of requests for that, subsistence use so if anybody, it just depends on what services. Sometimes we get a lot of requests and they're outside of our service area, and they need us to certify that they're an enrolled citizen. So there are services out there. If there's a form that we can certify for them, we certainly will do that.
Great, thanks for that, Val. From Maria Contreras, how do we go about getting an updated card? Sorry if that was already discussed. Maria, it was several times through this conversation, and again, thank you for following along. I believe our communications posted the link in the Facebook chat comments, and so that link is there, and there's actual forms you can go to download and get your updated card. From Diane Louie. Grant can be sought for those urban areas in terms of funding. Is there a grant writer for the urban community specifically? Curious what the urban numbers are. Yeah, we're actually looking to expand outside of service area in some pretty unique ways. One of those is through our tribal family youth services. We're going to be working to open an office in the Seattle area for our Indian child welfare, and having caseworkers there for that. To me, that's our getting our toehold outside of service area and expanding services. Tlingit Haida, if you follow our newsletters and news on Facebook, just in the last couple of months established a grants department. We just hired our grants director a little over a month ago. And that is absolutely our goal, is to start expanding and looking for new ways, new revenue sources that we can provide services for all tribal citizens. So stay tuned. I'm really excited about some of the things we're doing. From Crystal Barnes, is there a way we can bridge the gap with Washington tribes? Washington tribes are not accepting our tribal IDs. Sorry, I got tripped up on my own words there. Absolutely. I think if you let us know, and again, if you sent communication to Office of the President, which is on our website, and let us know if you're having those problems, we can reach out and have those conversations with other tribes across the nation. But send us some communication identifying the tribe that you're having the issue with, and what the issues are, and we'll do our best to communicate there with them. So from Frederick Otilius Olson, we hear about some lower 48 tribes having an issue with disenrollment. Does TNH have a policy regarding disenrollment? Val?
We do. That is a section in our Title 15 tribal enrollment statute. There is a process that if there's information brought to us about a non-Tlingit or Haida member that got enrolled with us erroneously, we bring it to the enrollment committee's attention, and there is a process that we follow. It's stated in our Title 15 statute.
Right. And also, so I think it's important to point out that sometimes if you live in the lower 48, for example, and a reservation tribe may not allow that dual enrollment, and you might find that you're better served at that tribe, you can request disenrollment.
Actually, that would be a relinquishment request. So a
Right.
relinquishment is voluntary and disenrollment is involuntary.
Right. So the tribe doesn't actively disenroll. Again, it has to be, that they're mistakenly enrolled.
Correct.
So from Teresa Sarabia, can a tribal citizen do a DNA test if the bio parents are not willing to do one to apply for enrollment? And I think maybe even not just agree to do one, some may be passed on and unable to do it. Val, do you have an answer for that, or Stephanie?
We don't have DNA has been an issue amongst tribes across the nation, and we don't offer DNA as a mechanism for proving. It's based on a birth certificate or family. We have affidavits of personal knowledge that the family can complete, but we don't use DNA for certification. We do for like paternity, that, the paternity affidavit will be submitted to the courts, and then we have the courts tell us who the father is deemed. Even though it says 99.999%, we still have the court make that determination for us.
Great. From Gloria Darlene Eon, is there a fraction such as 1/32 limit to be enrolled? Wow.
No, we don't have a blood quantum limit. We keep track of blood quantum, and it's a descendancy enrollment. So we have descendants that, as long as you can show that you're a descendant of an enrolled member or tribal citizen, then you're eligible for citizenship.
Great. From Alberta, Patty Boots. My father passed away. How can I add his blood quantum if he never signed birth certificate?
That one is, we handle a lot of, not a lot, we handle several cases that are similar to that. We present it to the enrollment committee and they'll review it and look at documentation that they may have that establishes that who the father is. And then a lot of times we reach out to the paternal parents or the siblings or his side of the family. And but we don't have anything that's in our, it's just on a case-by-case basis that the enrollment committee will review them.
Right. From George Bennett, is there a place on the enrollment to identify those that are veterans?
We do not, but that's a very good question.
Actually, an excellent suggestion.
That is.
Because especially we just are in the process of establishing our Veterans Advocacy Office. And I think we just recently hired for that position. So as we want to do more to advocate for our veterans, I think it would be great to have them identified. So great question, George. That's one we'll put our heads together on how we can achieve that, a way to identify our vets. From Patricia Phillips, can a teenage tribal member belong to another Alaska Native tribe? Either Val or Steph.
They can with, most tribes prohibit dual enrollment. Tlingit Haida does not. So if you're enrolled with a tribe that doesn't prohibit dual enrollment, we don't prohibit dual enrollment. So they could be enrolled into both tribes. Those that prohibit dual enrollment, a lot of times what will happen is a tribe will find out they're enrolled with us, with Tlingit Haida, and send us a request to verify whether that tribal citizen's enrolled, and we do respond to them and say yes, they're enrolled. And then that's usually when the relinquishment or the disenrollment takes place in the other tribe, is because they prohibited dual enrollment.
From Margaret Ivory, where can one check if their contact information is correct? It's a good question.
Val, you got that, or do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
There's a couple different ways. You could simply do the address update form on our Tlingit Haida website. If you'd like to verify and get confirmation, you can email us. We did just recently get a new email, so it's enrollment@ccthita-nsn.gov. And you can just send us your name. I do usually respond asking for a date of birth to confirm who you are. So if you can send your name and date of birth, we can confirm that information for you via email, or you can even call us as well.
This one is from Kinsey Andra Martin. Speaking as a non-adoptive citizen, can I still write for information regarding my ancestors? Yeah, just send, as I said earlier, you could send that to either program compliance or office of the president, and we can get it to our internal experts. And I'm not promising that we'll give you a wealth of information, but sometimes that we're able to. It just depends on how well documented, clan history and things are. So, but definitely. From Alberta Patty Boots, my granddaughter in Washington, can she enroll? Absolutely. Doesn't matter where you live. If you're eligible to be an enrolled citizen, they can go on. You can go on and you can see here the enrollment forms and go ahead and do that. From CJ Kruger, is there a place on the website we can advertise our small business so we can try to use other tribal companies before others? We're actually working on that right now, CJ. We're trying to identify businesses. We have a tribal artist program. If you're a tribal artist, you can find that information. I'll ask communications to put that in the comments. But we are trying to come up with a directory for our businesses. I think it's great for our citizens to see and be able to support tribal-owned businesses. And as Tlingit Haida, as we travel to other communities, we want to support local businesses as much as possible. I know like in Ketchikan, one of our citizens owns a car rental business, so we want to try to use that. If folks have like Airbnbs or lodging, we'd like to take advantage of that. So we do as much as we can, and would love to do more. So we're really trying to get that information into a directory that will be beneficial for all of our citizens, so that we can support those businesses and our citizens. So thank you for that. Mary Erickson, we live in Huna. Are we allowed to enroll with Juneau, Tlingit, and Haida? Well, you can be enrolled with Tlingit and Haida as a citizen, but if you're talking about community, if you live in Huna, you have to be signed up with the Huna Tlingit and Haida. As Val said earlier, if you're in Huna for education or military placement, then you can keep it in Juneau if that's where you're from. So, but otherwise, no, you have to be with Huna Tlingit and Haida enrolled. From Daphne Albi, how does Enrollment Services manage and update the bad address list? Is the list available on the website? Val?
We will be updating the address again as we do mail outs. We average, I'm just taking a number here, maybe 500 bad addresses when we do a major mail out. We try to update those addresses, and then communications will post a bad address. We are open to suggestions. I think we were going to work with a vendor with our database to try to work with the postal service to see if there's a program that we can do for those that have auto forwarding. I think it's what they call it, forwarding mail. Steph, maybe you can elaborate more on that, but it's an ongoing, bad addresses is an ongoing challenge for us. And as we update them, Steph has communications post the updated invalid address list. And I would encourage people to look at the list, and if they have family on there, if they can share this information to them so they can update their address with us.
Great. All right, well, I'm gonna finish off the last question. KD Simmons, is TNH planning to travel to communities to issue ID cards? Well, I'll go ahead and answer that. Kay, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus pandemic, that's canceled all travel in 2020 and right now in the foreseeable future until it's safe to travel again. We do try to make several communities a year, but as you can imagine, you can't hit every community every year. And we're really trying to spread that around. In fact, I know our last plans, I know like Huna was a community we hadn't been to in a while and had planned in 2020 to go to. So as soon as we can, we'll pick up those visits. But I think that's why it's important if you can get access, if you don't have online, if you can go to your local library or other places, to do it online, because that with the pandemic, that's really the best way that we can do that, because we're not taking clients in the office to do it, and we're not making those community visits right now. We're all very hopeful to get back to normal as quickly as possible, though, and pick up those community visits again. So thanks. And I really just want to stress to folks, if you're obviously on social media because you're putting in these questions, follow Tlingit Haida's Facebook page and go to our website for the newest updates and to keep informed on what's going on here. But it's also, when we're back to normal, we'll be posting those things online as soon as we can. I just want to thank everybody again. I really want to thank Val and Stephanie. I think you did a great job, great presentation. This week, as always, we have our door prizes. And so Gary Woods, you got our Hydro Flask, Willie Jack Jr. Formline T-shirt, and I want Helen K. Willard, you get the coin set, and I'd like to. That coin set was donated by Val, and I'd like Val to say a little bit about the coin she donated. Before she does, though, for the three of you that won, please private message us your address, and we'll get those prizes out to you ASAP. Val? You're muted, Val. I'm sure you were telling a good story.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I was telling them every time I work in compliance, so we listen to challenges, some complaints, or just stories from different people. And one of the things my dad has always told me is you always have to hear both sides of a story. And he always had a coin for me or for my siblings to make sure that we do listen to both sides of a story before we make a decision. And so I got these coins. One is the Elizabeth Pratovich coin, Tlingit, and then I was able to. My Canadian friends were able to help me get the Haida. I think it's a Toonie Bill Reed coin. So I thought it would be kind of nice to offer a set of a coin of the Tlingit Haida coins.
Well, thank you for that generous contribution, Val. I think that's a really neat thing. And it's really exciting to see some of our iconic leaders and contributors to our culture like Elizabeth Pratovich and Bill Reed be recognized in currency. I know many of us feel really proud when we see those. So I think those are really significant. And having known your dad as well as I did, I think that's really tremendous advice for him. And I'm glad you shared that story with us. I had mentioned earlier that the tribe had just created a veterans advocacy position, and I think it's common knowledge. So I'll go ahead and recognize Daryl Toby Brown has gotten that job and will be joining us here shortly if he hasn't already. And we're really excited to do that. Alaska Natives, Native Americans across the board are the highest serving demographic, and even among those, Alaska Natives are even higher. We have maintained for generations just a longstanding commitment of service from our citizens, and it's time for us to work and advocate for our veterans. So I'm really excited about that. I think one of our near future lunchtime chats will probably focus on our veterans, because there's a lot going on with the veterans allotment issue right now. A lot of rumors that the new administration put a halt on that. We're hearing that's not true, that it's still moving forward. But I think the lunchtime chat would be a great time for us to introduce Mr. Brown, what we hope to accomplish, and then and hopefully have some answers on where we're at with Native allotments. Again, just so appreciative of Val and Stephanie for their time. We are out of time, and I want to thank all of you who continue to tune in every week. We've been pretty darn consistent with week to week, with only a few exceptions. And we hope that this information really helps you inform our tribal citizens on what's available through the tribe. And we really value your feedback from our tribal citizens, and it really gives us some insight too. So I just want to thank you. Ganachish Hawa. Next week we'll be back and we'll have a CARES Act update. I'm sure many are interested in that. Before that, I'll just say that we updated the application process. I think it's simpler online, and we are, with the extension to the CARES Act, able to start accepting applications again for the assistance with the CARES Act. Everybody be well, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Gonna cheesh, hello.